Today, in fact, the Army Chief, General M.M. Naravne, spoke on Indo-Nepal relations. Listen in to what he said.
As far as Nepal is concerned, we have a very strong relationship with Nepal, which we have geographical linkages, historical linkages, cultural linkages, religious linkages. We have a very strong people-to-people connect, and our relation with them has always been strong and will remain strong in the future.
And in fact, joining us now on the broadcast, a special panel, Professor S.T. Muni, former diplomat, is live with us. Jaydev Ranade, member of the National Security Advisory Board and president for the Center for China Analysis and Strategy, will be joining us shortly. Lieutenant General Kamal Dawar, first Director General, Defense Intelligence Agency and Deputy Chief Integrated Defense Staff, is also with us live. Anil Giri, Deputy Editor of the Kathmandu Post and senior journalist, joins us live, and of course senior journalist and editorial director of the Sunday Guardian, Professor Madhav Nalapat, completes our panel this evening. Professor Muni, let me begin with you first. Are you disappointed that despite the opposition shown by India, despite efforts by a lawmaker to disallow this constitutional amendment bill to pass, it has passed in the Nepalese parliament today?
Well, it was expected. I am not surprised. And this, I keep saying that on this constitutional issue, Prime Minister Oli was riding a tiger. He could not get down on that. The tiger would eat him up because this was politically kicked up issue for him. And he had too many political stakes on that. Therefore, it had to be carried out. And it has carried out. But I am not neither unduly perturbed, nor I am surprised at all at the passing of this bill.
Okay, but what kind of ramifications will this have then? Direct question to Professor Muni, as you understand diplomatic relations between our two nations very well. What ramifications will this have directly?
Well, I think it has a strained relationship, and the strain in relationship will continue. But by making this map constitutional, the Nepalese Prime Minister and the Nepalese ultra-nationalist can sleep happily that they have it in the map. The Pakistanis sleep happily by showing Kashmir in their map. The Chinese sleep happily by showing Aksai Chir in their map. How does it matter? It doesn't matter. It doesn't change the factual situation unless the two sides sit down and sort it out. So that's what it is. It is unfortunate that Nepal has joined this kind of a league of our neighbors who have a perennial conflictual relationship with us. But I hope as the political temperatures cool down in Kathmandu, they'll realize that you have to get back to a normal engagement with India.
Okay, before I get in the other panelists, of course, from India, let's get a Nepal perspective from Anil Giri, Deputy Editor of the Kathmandu Post. Anil Giri, take us through what the reactions are to this decision that has been taken to pass this in the Nepalese parliament today. At a time when Corona is peaking across the world, why was this the priority of Nepal, knowing fully well that it could jeopardize Indian relations?
So thank you. So I partially agree with Professor Muni that Prime Minister Oli was riding the tiger and he couldn't come out from the tiger. Yeah, definitely I agree with him. But one thing we should realize: the Indian, diplomats or Indian is a member of the study circles, Indian media. They should realize that once Nepal had made a request with India in November, Nepal, I think Foreign Ministry has sent more than 3 diplomatic notes to India. Let's sit and let's discuss. And this time also again in the May, Foreign Ministry they sent another diplomatic note to India. Let's sit. And if there was we are just expecting, our people are just expecting a phone calls either from the Prime Minister, either from the Foreign Minister, Foreign Secretary. So if that could go on the record, that yes, because we had already agreed there is a disagreement in the border in Susta and Kalapani since 2007. So you see, we have, there are lots of positive things happening in the border side. We have agreed maps, 182 seats of strip maps are there besides Susta and Kalapani. and now border working group are working from both sides to maintain all these kind of things. Border working group is probably going to complete its tenure into.
Okay, I think we're having some trouble there with Mr. Giri's connection. I'll get him back in a second. Professor Muni, you want a quick...
33, pillars,
Yeah.
So please let me complete my things.
Go ahead. No, you were breaking up. That's why I was interrupting you. Go ahead now. You're back. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm not fully agree with some of the statements made in Kathmandu and some of the statements made in Delhi. So these are the rhetoric, and these kind of rhetorics are not going to help to understand the issue. There are good things are happening in the border side.
No, fair enough. Your point taken,
So,
Mr. Giri, but two specific questions to you, two direct questions to you, and I'm not going to mince words. One, is this happening at the behest of China?
Sure.
Is that something that you can acknowledge as well? Is simply this being done at the behest of China? Is PM Oli the only one who's pushing this through? Because there was opposition from certain other politicians until perhaps back channel talks happened, although Ms. Giri still went ahead with this amendment. So these two direct questions for
Sure.
you.
I want to make clarify to you that our foreign secretary has summoned the Chinese ambassadors in Kathmandu and handed over the similar kind of reservation about the what Nepal had expressed in 2015, and our DCM in Beijing had also discussion with the Chinese side regarding seeking explanation from the Chinese side. This is well written in Nepali media. No, there is no any China fact. There is no any China factor. Professor Muni knows very well about what is the status of China in Nepal, how much deeply Chinese are engaged in Nepal or not engaged in Nepal, what is the status of the BRI project in Nepal, what is happening after the president visit, what is the status of the China funded project in Nepal. So these are the lack of general knowledge by some of the Indian media and the people from the side. From Kathmandu perspective, I don't see any China factor, because I can give you fact, figures and evidence that there is no any China factor, because we have also our foreign secretary and our DCM in Beijing, they have also expressed their serious reservation about this kind of thing in Lipu Lake that we did in 2015. So I don't see any China factors, and I see the room, as Professor Muni has said, once things come down, cool down, and probably we will have lots of room. There is lots of space for negotiation.
Let's get the others in. Let's get the others. I've heard you out. I'll come back to you. Before I get Lieutenant General Dawar, Mr. Muni, Professor Muni, I think you have a quick counter.
No, I just wanted to tell Anil that India never said no to the talks. We on record that yes, we will talk. We have been talking. There is a joint border commission which has been engaged with this issue. And I can remind you, at that time, the dispute area is only 65 square kilometers between Lipu Lake and Tinker River. There was no name mentioned in the joint boundary commission of the Limpia Dhara. This is a politicized issue, and I agree that India should have sorted it out long back. I say even with the Ranas or with Mahindra, it should have been sorted out. We have been complacent, we have been slow on this. But then when it comes to raising the claims, even as late as last month, indications were sent to both Deuba and Oli that please don't issue the map. I'm not saying the parliament approval, but even at the time of issuing the map, you don't issue the map, we shall engage in discussions. But as I said, Oli could not have done, since he had too many political stakes.
Okay, Lieutenant Dawar, come in here. While General Naravne today, of course, says that there are no fresh tensions and relations are stable, there's nothing to worry about. How do you view this decision by the Nepalese Parliament today, sir?
We have such an excellent relationship with Nepal, and we have over 30,000. And for me as a soldier, it pains me that why this thing has really, ballooned into such a controversy. We have over 30,000 of the bravest soldiers in the world and of the Indian Army workers with us since years, and they are our pride. And we have a large number of ex-servicemen who are living off Indian pensions and things like that. And we honor them, we respect them for their services to India. And why this is occurred, I think it's, if you look at it deeply, as Professor Muni very rightly said, somewhere we've been complacent. And let me tell our friend from Nepal that, please don't utter what will not be really, which is not really the truth. It is at China's behest, and only at China's behest, that Nepal today playing their game. And but I still wish that the government of India at the highest levels could have contacted the government of Nepal at their highest levels, and this could have been resolved. I wonder whether you know that 98% of the Indo-Nepalese border has been sorted out over the last many decades. And this is just a very small, area. And the Nepalese really didn't have to sort of raise it to such a level. And what was the hurry? Of course, they've asked for foreign secretary meetings. There's no denying the fact. We have requested them that, look, let the pandemic be over. We have recently sent, I think if my facts are correct, 25 tons of medicines to Nepal. Nepal is not a neighbor, please. It is our brother. Of course, it is our younger brother. We have blood relations with them. We have religious relations with them. And, things like that. And Nepal too, and we have over 1 million Nepalese working in India. Over a million. So, I don't know, the Chinese have been playing a very deep game, but, their string of pearls and, encircling India and all. They have succeeded very eminently with Pakistan. And today, they have succeeded to a large extent, even with Nepal. But India should have been a little more alive to the Chinese, strategies of encircling India. And all I would like to say is that everything is still retrievable with Nepal. Nepal cannot run away from India. We are the same people.
Anil Giri, respond before I get in Professor Nalapat.
No, I agree that our relations, India-Nepal ties goes back to the century and is historic. We call it special, unique. I agree with him. But I better suggest not to bring the China factor here. Yes, could be there is some tension in the border between China and India, and there could be other reason. But probably this time. I still prefer to say that if an Indian Army chief would not make a statement on that, on the behest of he alluding to some other country, probably KP Oli would not bring the map, or there could be no consensus, this kind of consensus among the political party. So until the Army chief, Indian Army chief statement, KP Oli was not the KP Oli government was not in favor of bringing out the constitution. I think he made some kind of unwelcoming statement that he tried to allude, or he tried to single out China and the behest of China. Probably that's pinched to our political party leaders, probably. So that is why it became a very, very controversial inside Nepal, and the government decided to bring out the map. I would like to remind this very, very excellent platform that there were the pressure, similar kind of pressure on KP Oli in November also, when India came up with the new political map, reorganizing its territory. The similar kind of pressure was there from media, from civil society, from parliamentarians, and even KP Oli government. They sent 3 diplomatic notes to India in November and December, putting hold the publishing the map pressure. They hold the pressure from the various community, but it didn't, because we kept a room. Nepal kept a room for a dialogue with India, but this time probably they feel a bit pinched by some of the.
Let's get in the others. Professor Nalapat, come in here. Professor Nalapat, is it naive to say that this is not because of China? And how will India view these developments? Is it now inevitable that relations will suffer?
Look, let's be honest. The border between India and China is the one border between which China has any other country that is not really settled. I mean, India, Nepal, of course, as the general correctly said, is our brother, and it's a different situation. And Pakistan, and frankly, Pakistan has an interest in ensuring that neither the eastern nor the western side of India's borders remain settled. So we have a extant border problem with China, and I do believe that that needs to be looked at very seriously. Today, it's almost a kind of a casual thing, looking at the border. You know, hardworking people who are working on so many things may spend 15 minutes every other week, and then some talks take place every few months. Well, I think you need a 24/7 effort on both sides to resolving the border issue, because the way I look at it, the situation between India and China is not developing at all in a healthy situation, including from the point of view of China, more especially from the point of view of China, because China does not have the options that India has. Having said that, and so far as this is concerned, I'm glad the government has not reacted in a very kinetic way to this map. Frankly, possession is 9/10 of the law. Unfortunately, we allowed possession of 1/3 of Kashmir to Pakistan. And when Aksai Chin, when the Chinese took possession of Aksai Chin, I don't know what our people were doing. If they were, I mean, they were either sleeping, or they didn't understand the importance, or they didn't know anything, because nothing happened. And the Chinese built an entire road through the territory without anybody in India being, at least on record, aware of the situation. So, very frankly, it is, you know, I'm glad that we have reacted in this fashion, but I simply want to say India has been bending backwards, forwards, and sideways to be reasonable with everybody, you know, and including with Pakistan, a country that has fought multiple wars with India. In my personal view, this is not a dispute at all. There is no dispute from the Indian side. In the case of POK, for example, there is also no dispute. There is no reason to talk to Pakistan about POK. There is no dispute. The only question is how we can ensure that there is a friendly Pakistan, a friendly Nepal. And of course, the Chinese also change their attitude to us. And I'm not going to go to China into the Chinese issue now, but so far as Pakistan is concerned, I think it is very clear that so long as the military is in command, Pakistan is going to continue to have this negative policy to India, because that is the justification the army uses for draining the Pakistan economy. So far as Nepal is concerned, Prime Minister Oli, as my guide and guru, Professor Muni has said, has jumped on the tiger. And you know very well, either you fall off the tiger, or basically, but you can't jump off the tiger, because then you will be eaten by the tiger. So I think Oli, frankly, has jumped on the tiger, and my view is certainly not even a productive meeting can take place so long as Oli is the Prime Minister of Nepal. Quite frankly, there are some people who have a very hostile intent towards India, and our friend from Nepal may be having a different view of Prime Minister Oli. Maybe he's seen documents which I have not seen. But in my view, I think the stance we're adopting is very mature. We have basically ignored this situation, and we have refused to talk in terms of a dispute or anything. And I frankly think that's the way to go.
Jaydev Ranade, come in here, because you know what explains this new shift in stance and new policy by Nepal, in your view? What's your understanding of it? Because the fact is, while there have been treaties earlier, there have been historical facts as well unearthed which say that one side of the Nadi is ours and the other side is Nepal's. Why this sudden claim to the areas of Lipu Lake, Kalapani and Limpiadhura, which are integral parts of Indian territory?
Exactly. Actually, these are minuscule territories, if I may call it that. And there is nothing that could not have been discussed. We have discussed territorial issues with Bangladesh and with Sri Lanka and settled it. In fact, we've been willing to go to international arbitration and take the decision of the arbitration. So there is no reason why it could not have been done. Even in the case of Nepal, I'm sure that we could have discussed it, whatever our concerns were, we could have presented it to Nepal. Nepal could have given their concern, we could have sorted it out.
Yes.
But I would like to make 2 points here. While our friend Mr. Giri is entitled to his view, I would like to point out that in India, we are looking at the timing of this particular issue, the manner in which it has been taken up at this time, when we are already facing a hostile China, and then for Nepal to raise this issue, whether you say KP Oli was under pressure earlier or not is irrelevant. Certainly, he could have bided his time, waited a few days, and then raised the issue now, instead of raising the issue now. That is one. The second is that this is not the first time that Prime Minister Oli has raised issues like that, and neither is it the first time that Nepal has raised issues. In fact, we have seen general drift of Nepal towards Beijing more and more. And I remember when the PLA chief General Chan Pingda had visited Kathmandu, I think that was maybe 2012-13, somewhere there. At that time, one of the newspapers in Nepal had said that the honorary rank of general, which is traditionally conferred only in the Indian Army chief, and the Indian Army confers a similar rank on the Nepal Army chief, should be conferred on Chan Pingda also. So the signs were already there, and I'm afraid it started with Prachanda. It has continued. Oli, if I may say so, is more of a hardliner. We have seen it. And right now, with China having bailed him out and ensured that he kept his position on 2 occasions, he is naturally beholden to them. So I am afraid there is a view in India, I certainly have that view, that this is not a gesture that just happened or a move that just happened. It is a move that has been timed, deliberate. And that in itself is something that I think is an unfriendly act. And it narrows the route for negotiation. India is still wanting to negotiate. I saw the reaction from Delhi, very open, saying that let's talk. But with all these actions, the thing has been narrowed, and now it has gone to the National Assembly, which is the final stage. So why precipitate matters is something that concerns, I think, not only me, but I'm sure many others.
Okay, that's a valid point. Let's get a quick response once again before I go back to Professor Muni from Mr. Giri. Mr. Giri, you heard what our Indian panelists had to say.
Yes, it's a very, interesting to listen the Indian, very esteemed personality here. So I want to refer one Indian media report that Nepal was looking for the video conference only, recently. So if we are, every day there is a debate in the Indian television that lots of Nepali people, Nepali expert, intellectual, journalists are making video conference. Why not the Indian Foreign Secretary and Nepal's Foreign Secretary can talk about the, telephone and in the Zoom and or video conference to settle the dust. So, it is a...
No, but the question also is, what is there to talk? Mr. Giri, as Professor Nalapat said, who should we speak to? Why should we speak to Mr. Oli when he's clearly taking a pro-China line? The fact is, India made it clear, if these amendments go through, the relations will suffer. I mean, what more do you want than that, a statement like that?
No, how do you say that China line? Could you give some substantive kind of evidence that Oli is working, or Nepali political parties are working on the line of China? Please,
Lieutenant General Dawar, General Dawar wants to come in.
Please give me some one.
Lieutenant General Dawar wants to come in. You made your point, hear the others out now.
I just wanted to tell our Nepalese friend that your point about a video conference between your political leadership and our political leadership is fine, absolutely fine. But what is the hurry? These boundary disputes, which are, this has been on since, let's say, 1816 in the Sajoli Treaty and all. What is the hurry?
Right.
The world is suffering, you are suffering, we are suffering from the pandemic. India has tried to help Nepal in whatever way it could. So what was the hurry between November, December of 2019 and now to push this map, which has unnecessarily created problems, major problems between India and Nepal? Doesn't the government of Nepal realize that doing this, taking a unilateral cartographic aggression vis-a-vis India, who's been your brother and your elder brother for years and years and years. What was the goddamned hurry to pass it through Nepalese parliament? And that is where I say, and let me tell you, you also know the truth. Actually, it is nothing but the Chinese prodding you at this time when China is facing the ire of the world. You may say you can camouflage it with any reason, but I think this is something so obvious. So I'm sorry.
Professor Muni, I began with you first. Let's end with you now. How should India respond?
Well, I told you in the beginning, I wanted to make really 2 points. One is to Anil, as to now you have made a constitutional amendment. Can any leadership today in Nepal make any basic objective assessment of the facts which we have? And can they change the position? The answer is simple no. That's why they have made themselves into a groove where meaningful negotiations are not possible. And certainly I tell you, not through the video conferencing, because you have to show us many maps and treaties and agreements, and we have to show you equal number, if not more, of the maps and treaties and agreements, including the joint statement by the Boundary Commission, where the dispute only confines to 65 square kilometer, not to Limpia Dhura, as I am telling you repeatedly. Now, how do you sort it out through the video conference? You cannot. Nepal has waited for 150 years from raising this question. You could not wait for another 1.5 months. I mean, I cannot understand this impatience on the part of Mr. Oli to go ahead. Yes, I mean, you can have all kind of excuses of Army Chief's statement, which I personally say it would have been better if he did not make it. But Rajnath Singh's inauguration of the issuing of the Kashmir map, which has nothing to do with the Nepalese situation. And it is totally excuses that has been raised. Secondly, a very small point. I think the China factor is there relevant to the extent that any tension between Nepal and India will be cast upon, exploited by the Chinese. But fact remains that the Nepalese, for the last 20 years, have been asking on this issue. Therefore, let us not relate everything which Nepal is doing to China.
Okay.
China is a factor, it looms large, but it is not the only and the final point.
Okay.